Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a Wednesday night edition of Sirhan on X, coming to you live from Cincinnati, Ohio, in the United States. Hope everyone out there had themselves a wonderful 7th of May, 2025. Actually, the weather's starting to get warmer here in Cincinnati as the temperature's starting to rise. Got a good sweat today in the workplace. Uh, just to touch on something real quick, I got a couple notifications about the fight thing that's going on with the particular internet. I will submit my picks later tonight or tomorrow. I apologize for not partaking due to situations that were beyond my control earlier today. I will submit my picks to you guys later tonight. Now I'm just going to go ahead and get right down to it. Start with the NFL. Actually, I see some new people out here. Before I proceed, just want to give you the introduction of what I do. Like everybody has a voice, and I plan on using mine in the sports fields, most notably football, boxing, and I certainly to get back in the NBA as well as the UFC in recent weeks and months. So I've expanded my horizons a little bit, and I started on the X platform, stream live also on Facebook and Rumble, and also can be heard on Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Apple Podcasts. If you have those particular platforms on your mobile devices, you can listen to me there as well as watch me live on the X platform. I will submit the links to those particular shows as the week goes on, so you can catch me on the three particular platforms: Apple, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. Now I'm just going to touch right down to it. Of course, the big trade today in Pittsburgh, it was the Pittsburgh Steelers sending I don't want to call him a malcontent receiver, but an intriguing character, George Pickens, from Pittsburgh to Dallas, come out of nowhere. I mean, it was talked about during the draft. The question I have with this is why you would do this now when you could have done this in the draft and maybe get something to put a team together. My guess is probably, he's in a contract year with Pittsburgh, probably wasn't happy. His agent, David Mulugita, which a lot of people call him a very hard-headed agent. It's probably the Steelers and the front office didn't want to deal with it. So they decided to pack his bags and send him out to Dallas. They swapped, I believe, 7th-round picks. The Steelers also get a 3rd-round pick on top of it. And we'll see where this one goes. I mean, they don't have the greatest wide receiver room right now. They did get Derek Metcalf out of Seattle in a trade that involved a 2nd-round draft pick, signed him to a long-term deal. Original plan was a 1-2 punch of Pickens and Metcalf. Didn't turn out to be. My guess maybe is over there in Pittsburgh, they're probably going to relive Antonio Brown 2.0. You know how his tenure in Pittsburgh ended there after starting with the Facebook Live in the locker room after that playoff win at Kansas City, among many other things that just went off the rails. So, but for Dallas, they get a number 2 wide receiver opposite CeeDee Lamb. Granted, the guy's a bit of a malcontent for whatever reason, but if you can get him on a straight and narrow, be a perfect fit opposite CeeDee Lamb, another target for Dak Prescott. But the question on that side was it worth the what Dallas gave up to get him? Because they gave up a 3rd and a 7th, and we talked, the situation when he was in Pittsburgh, when all the wild stories and all the video clips that came out where there was a lack of effort on his part. Poignant moment, of course, a couple of seasons ago in a game in Cincinnati where he missed a block and that led to a fumble by Najee Harris. And basically the Steeler fans just gave it to George Pickens with everything they could and then some. But let's remind people he had some red flags with his behavior when he was at the University of Georgia when Pittsburgh took him. I mean, the talent is there, no doubt. But the question was it worth the risk at this point? So my guess is they wanted to get out of having to deal with an agent and a contract situation. So they sent him to Dallas. The question I have is why now when you could have done this in the draft when he was available? Of course, Steelers kept saying he wasn't available. Then out of nowhere, the trade was made. Lots of questions that need to be answered all the way around out of this in terms of the timing. I get the general concept of it. Maybe they didn't want to go through what they went through with Antonio Brown once upon a time. I mean, we'll see where this one goes. But the timing of this is as an eyebrow raiser. They should have done this during the draft. So let's see. But if he can see in a straight and arrow in Dallas, next to CeeDee Lamb, good fit as a number 2 receiver opposite him, another target for Dak Prescott. Of course, Dallas has a lot of other things going on. But of course, this is probably more of a Jerry Jones type trade, and we know what Jerry Jones is all about, all the theatrics. And we know Jerry Jones in Dallas has been nothing but the theatrics since the day he fired Jimmy Johnson after the back-to-back Super Bowls in 1993 and 1994, where he and the Dallas Cowboys have been a laughingstock among many other things since then. So let's see where it goes for them. I mean, they're still going to probably be the third best team in the NFC East behind Dallas and Washington, behind Philadelphia and Washington, and still going to miss the playoffs because they have a mess that needs to be cleaned up. Don't know if George Pickens is going to help in that regard because they have a head case over there, as Pittsburgh will tell you. Transitioning to the other team in the AFC North, right here in Cincinnati, news comes out today that the standout defensive end Trey Hendrickson is not going to play on this current deal, according to the bunch of idiots in the Cincinnati media, which everybody knows how I feel about the Cincinnati media and the Cincinnati content creators and their super fans, like the Bengals captain, who's a grade A coward, Chris Rowling, who's a douchebag, among many others. Trey Hendrickson will be there week 1. Let's get that out of the way. There's not going to be a holdout. There's not going to be anything going on. He's going to be there. And everybody in Cincinnati needs to get their panties all up in a bunch and stop it because he's going to be there. The guy's a pro's pro, one of the premier defensive linemen in the entire NFL. He's always taken the high road among many other things. And I expect him to be there week 1 when Cincinnati kicks off the season, whoever it was going to be. I mean, he'll probably miss some of the voluntary workouts due to the contract, understandably so. I think it's more agent talk because his agent, Harold Lewis, has been a real thorn in the side among the many teams in the NFL, not just with Trey Hendrickson in Cincinnati, among many others. So I expect Hendrickson to be in Cincinnati when the season starts week 1, whether it's with a new contract or the current one. I don't know. I'm not a predictor in that regard, but I expect the deal to be done at the right particular time. And I expect him to be there, ready to play. He's a pro's pro. Everyone's saying, pay the man, pay the man. Saying the pay the man about 5,000 times isn't going to get you anywhere. So for the Bengals fans and the super fans and the media people, you all need to flat out shut up and let the situation take care of itself, because he will be there week 1. Question is going to be, is he going to be there for the final time of the season as a Cincinnati Bengal? That is going to be the question mark. I'm not a fortune teller. I'm not a predictor, so I don't know, and I don't know what the hell to tell you. But everybody in Cincinnati needs to stop having their panties all up in a bunch because of everything they read on the internet. Because I said all along, the most gullible and sensitive fan base in all of sports is the Cincinnati Bengals fans and the excuses they make year in and year out. And I've said all along, I'm reminded of what was Mike Tyson fans during my boxing years when the excuses Mike Tyson fans made after losing to James Buster Douglas. Cincinnati Bengals fans act in the most crazy ways, the way they did in the 90s. I'm seeing eerie comparisons to me, and I will tell you this. I can speak from experience. Sometimes your fandom overtakes your common sense thinking. I told that to Mike Tyson fans when I was in Memphis in 2002, when they were stupid enough to think he was going to knock out Lennox Lewis. And I'm telling the Bengals fans this because they're stupid enough to think this is a big deal and they're going to actually do something this season when they aren't, because they have a quarterback and 2 wide receivers they're going to pay in essence of nearly $600 million from now to the end of the decade, where they need to be winning at least 2 Super Bowls, which more than likely is not going to happen. And their stock's going to fall worse than Enron when it fails. I mean, not even Enron will crash that bad. If you guys in the business field, you know what happened with Enron, so I'm not going to divulge into it. But to trace back onto the topic of Trey Hendrickson, I expect him to be there week 1, ready to play. This whole thing of what's going on about paying the guy, getting him out, say whatever you want, it doesn't matter. More than likely, he's going to play out his contract this season in Cincinnati if he doesn't get a new deal, and he's going to walk and find a valuable suitor who's going to pay him his worth, because we know what happens in Cincinnati. If you talk about wanting to be paid your worth, they're going to tell you to have a seat and leave. And that's what's probably going to happen to Trey Hendrickson after the 2025 NFL season. Rather unfortunate, but that's the way it is. You guys got to learn how to deal with it in Cincinnati. I swear I can make a show about Mike Tyson fans and Cincinnati Bengals fans that could last an hour and make them all look like fools, but I have better things to do. I always said the two worst fan bases I've ever dealt with, Mike Tyson fans and Cincinnati Bengals fans. Now to college football. Now, I tried to talk about this last night. Due to technical difficulties, I was unable to. So I'm going to rehash this again for all the Ohio State followers. You guys know among the many other things that took place with Jim Knowles, the one-time defensive coordinator for Ohio State, who is now the defensive coordinator for the Penn State Nittany Lions. And basically, he comes out, basically calls the situation awkward because he wanted a contract with Ohio State prior to the national title game against Notre Dame. Well, they have a national championship game to prepare for. I mean, you could have waited till after the game. They could have given you the contract, but it seemed like you wanted to go Nico Iamaleava via the head coaching route and take the job to play in a same conference against a rival. That's not going to end well for you. I can tell you this much. I mean, you did a solid job in Ohio State. Your mission was accomplished. You got him the national title, under circumstances. I'll just leave it at that. You won the national title. Be grateful. But for you to come out and say the whole thing was awkward and you didn't get what you wanted at the time you wanted it, it's just weird. And for you to jump to a conference rival, it's something that is a head scratcher to me, because it's not the fact you did it, it's how you did it. And now you're coming out now saying what happened when you could have resolved the situation before you jumped to conclusions. That's where I lost this guy when he had this interview a couple of days ago. I mean, granted, everyone wants to be securely compensated. I hate to say the word paid because it's more to just being paid when you talk about, careers and jobs. Securely compensated for a longer term at a job you felt as your home and you was comfortable in, but you want to go ahead and try and throw the university under the bus because you felt like you should have been paid before the national title game against Notre Dame. I mean, you weren't necessarily the greatest offensive coordinator at that point. Your biggest luck out was your defense turned it up when it got to the college playoff, when you just put lockdowns on Tennessee and Oregon, and of course found a way to cap off with a Jack Sawyer fumble return for a touchdown against Texas to get to the national title game. I mean, we're grateful for what you did at Ohio State. I mean, you called the perfect defense during the college playoff run, no doubt. But how you went out on a whipper like this and how you say the things you just said the other day doesn't look good on you. All I'm going to say to you is good luck at Penn State. I mean, they have a solid defensive team, I'm sure, because they've had it for the last couple of years. Of course, this season, you're not going to have the standout Abdul Carter, who's going to the New York Giants in the NFL. But good luck, Jim Knowles. When you said what you said the other day, going on Nico Iamaleava, doesn't look good on you. And for all you newbies out here, when I talk about Nico Iamaleava, he was the quarterback at Tennessee. Thought he wasn't being compensated well, so he decided not to show up to Tennessee meetings, and the head coach, Josh Heupel, decided to give him the boot, and now he's going to UCLA. And basically he's going to UCLA for less money, and we know how that backfired. So, I mean, it might be the same thing here with Jim Knowles going from Ohio State to Penn State. Good luck, because that game November 1st, when Penn State goes to Columbus for a massive, Big Ten matchup, Big 10, Big 12, or whatever the frick they want to call it. Good luck, because I know Ohio State's going to be licking their chops, especially the fan base that packs over 100,000 in that stadium. I might actually make a trip to Columbus this season to go to one of these games. Depends if all you Ohio State fans want me over. I mean, send me the invite. But good luck, Jim Knowles. Speaking of the state of Ohio, we're going to travel up north. And what a wild finish last night in Cleveland, where the Indiana Pacers looked like they weren't going to hold off, or at least come back to beat the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Indiana Pacers out-hustled the Cleveland Cavaliers down the stretch to take the 2-0 series lead. The capper, of course, the game-winning three-pointer by Tyrese Haliburton in the defender's face. I mean, first of all, you idiots in Cleveland need to shut up with the overrated chant, because you guys look like cowards when you said it. And Tyrese Haliburton put it in your face. Your cowardly act, because you guys called him overrated. I hope you guys are proud of yourselves, because that was terrible. Wasted a 48-point performance by Donovan Mitchell. Of course, you didn't have key pieces, especially Evan Mobley among others, but it doesn't deter the fact you had it at 18-point lead at one point and couldn't put the Pacers away. The Indiana Pacers have a very unique mix. I mean, they got Pascal Siakam last season from Toronto. I mean, they still kept Miles Turner, a good front court duo right there. Of course, Haliburton on the roster. Lots of solid pieces at the shooting guard and small forward positions, but mainly the top three are Siakam, Haliburton, and Turner. And Siakam and Turner did everything they could to keep them in it. Of course, set up the game winner by Tyrese Haliburton. Puts Indiana up 2-0 on the Cleveland Cavaliers. And there's a lot of questions that need to be answered in Cleveland because outside of Donovan Mitchell, who's going to step up? Because that's what it's going to come down to. Like Donovan Mitchell did everything he could to carry the Cavaliers to a win they needed after laying an egg in game one. Wasn't meant to be. The Indiana Pacers were missing free throws, but they were getting offensive rebounds off those missed free throws. And basically, if you want to pull up the hustle stats, that's where the game was lost. I mean, you have to pull up the hustle stats. You can pull up the hustle videos. I mean, one of the times Pascal Siakam misses a free throw, you have Miles Turner just hustling in, get the offensive rebound and a dunk. You give up offensive rebounds on missed free throws, you deserve to lose a game. And the Cleveland Cavaliers got exactly what they deserved last night. I mean, tip your hat off to Tyrese Haliburton, who basically doing anything and everything he could to put the cowards in Cleveland in their place with the idiotic overrated chant. If anything is more overrated, it's Cleveland fans chanting the word overrated because they have an NFL quarterback who fits that bill better than Tyrese Haliburton. But Indiana Pacers are up 2-0. I want to say shockingly, but given how well they've played and how they just dismantled Milwaukee the series before, I can't say I'm not surprised because I know Cleveland decimated Miami, who really shouldn't even have been in the playoffs. I know they had, 66 or 67 wins, but Indiana's just balling at the right time. And good luck Friday night, game 3. I have an itch. Indianapolis is going to be rocking, and they're ready for the Pacers to ball out on their home courts. Good luck. I think the Cavaliers are in for a fight, and they're going to have their hands full moving forward. Just not a good look. It goes more than just having guys hurt. I know Darius Garland is out. It was brought up earlier today by Stephen A. Smith. But if the guys on your roster can't step up outside of Donovan Mitchell, what good is it? Because you need somebody else to step up. That's the problem. And speaking of Cleveland, it was 36 years ago today at the old Richfield Coliseum in Cleveland, Ohio, where probably one of the most iconic moments took place in NBA playoff history. It was Game 5 of the 1989 Eastern Conference Playoff Series between the Chicago Bulls and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Those in Chicago know what I'm talking about. It is where the pass goes to Michael Jordan, the double clutch on Craig Ehlo to hit the game winner and hit him pounding his chest to eliminate the Cleveland Cavaliers out of the NBA playoffs. And probably one of the all-time iconic moments in NBA playoff, and maybe even sports playoff history. I mean, to hit a game winner to eliminate an opponent at the buzzer like that, nothing is more iconic than that. And that's what happened 36 years ago at the Richfield Coliseum in Cleveland, Ohio. Of course, being the people in Cleveland, Ohio, doesn't know how to accept losses like adults. They resorted to booing Michael Jordan every time he touched the ball whenever he went to Cleveland. Says a lot about their character. But maybe this was where the legend of Michael Jordan really began. I mean, he had the 63-point performance at Boston Garden where Larry Bird said he thought he saw God enter the building. I mean, I get it. But a moment like this to elevate Michael Jordan to the next level stature, the way he did it at the buzzer, the best way to do it is do it on the road in the clutch situation at the buzzer. That's what Michael Jordan did at Richfield, Ohio 36 years ago. Just a moment. The crazy thing is, the Cavaliers did everything they could on the inbounds pass to prevent Michael from getting it, but somehow Michael got it, took 2 dribbles, hung up in the air. I mean, he just hung up in the air like an extra second, did like a little double clutch, brought that ball down, turned it away from the defender, then shot it. It was almost like a line drive swish. I mean, there was no real arc on the shot, but the hang time Michael Jordan had and the surreal athleticism that he had at that time to have a game winner that day in Cleveland over Craig Elo, probably one of the most surreal things ever. Of course, Michael Jordan had so many iconic moments we can ever think of. The air reverse were in the game 2 of the 91 NBA Finals, the game winner in Utah in the end, game 6 of the 1998 Finals, among many others. But some could point to what took place 36 years ago today at Richfield Coliseum when Michael Jordan eliminated the Cleveland Cavaliers on that iconic shot where he catches the ball, hangs in the air for an extra second, does a little double clutch and adjustment to get the shot off over Craig Elo to win and eliminate the the Cleveland Cavaliers from the 1989 NBA playoffs. Of course, they were going to lose to the eventual NBA champion Detroit Pistons later. And we know the wild stories there. The bitter hatred Isaiah Thomas has for him. I'll touch on that in another show. But this night probably was when the legend of Michael Jordan was really introduced. I mean, we point to the 63-point game in Boston Garden. That's one thing. But when he hit a game winner in the playoffs to eliminate an opponent at the NBA level, that's next level greatness stuff. And Michael Jordan, from that point on, just took off. We know the career accolades, the accomplishments, and everything else from that point forward. And this ideology of you're going to call him the GOAT or whatever, Michael Jordan says countless times he doesn't want to have that recognition because it's disrespecting legends of the game like Wilt Chamberlain and Jerry West, because that's where everybody in the NBA basketball community and the basketball intelligentsia currently forget. Michael Jordan never cared about the political aspect of it. He never cared about the personal accolades from fans. He let the basketball play do the talking for him, and how they viewed it, it was fine with him. It doesn't matter how it's viewed, good, bad, pretty, or ugly. It doesn't matter. Just look at how he was in the that Last Dance series on ESPN. That's all you need to know. I mean, if you want to call him the GOAT, have at it. If you don't want to call him the GOAT, have at it. Because Michael Jordan doesn't care about that statue. If others want to have it, they can have it because Michael Jordan doesn't care for it. And there's some people who want to diminish his legacy to put others above him without any real criteria or any real, explanation for it. But what can you say? But as I said before, until we see a Gatorade commercial like we had in the 80s and the 90s, like Mike, for the old-time Michael Jordan fans out there, they can tell you this. We haven't seen anything close to it. I mean, his impact, we talk about, with the commercials, the Air Jordan, the shoes, everything, all the commercials he had, the original Space Jam, which was a big hit back in the mid-90s. Michael Jordan, the greatest ever. Anyone can proclaim it, but Michael Jordan didn't want to sell himself to call himself the greatest. He let everything he did do the talking for him. So 36 years ago today, you could say the legend of Michael Jordan started when he put the double clutch in the air on Craig Elo to get the game winner to knock Cleveland out of the playoffs. And another iconic moment in NBA history, actually I got a few of these today. This took place in the old Seattle Coliseum 31 years ago. It was the image of Dikembe Mutombo getting the rebound, laying on the floor with a big smile on his face, celebrating as the 8th seed Denver Nuggets come out of nowhere to stun the number 1 seed Seattle Supersonics to be the first number 8 seed in NBA history to knock off a number 1. Actually down 2-0 in that series, winning 3 straight. Actually games 4 and 5, taking the Seattle Sonics to overtime to do it. And basically, it was grit, determination, and that's how the Denver Nuggets did it. Maybe you could say that Seattle team in the 93-94 season who won 63 games was a real front runner because they weren't really tested much. And some of the best, some of the better teams didn't turn out to be the way they thought, and they just took care of business all throughout the regular season. Of course, the dynamic point guard power forward duo of Gary Payton and Sean Kemp, the original Lob City up there in Seattle, just throwing highlight reel dunks to 63 win seasons. But they met a team that basically just chunked until they finally hit the pay dirt when they pulled the shocker 31 years ago today in Seattle. That lasting image of Dikembe Mutombo getting the block, getting the rebound, landing on the floor with a ball in the air and a smile on his face. Another iconic moment in NBA history. Because before that, no one would ever envision a number 8 beating a number 1. Denver did it. And let me remind you, the first 2 games of that series, Seattle was up 2-0 and won both games by a combined 35 points. I mean, they were running Denver out the first 2 games. I mean, no one could foresee Denver just coming back and just chopping away the way they did in games 3 through 5. I mean, guys like Reggie Williams, Brian Williams, and of course, Dikembe Mutombo with Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, better known as Chris Jackson, and Robert Pack just made key plays at key moments while finding ways to put the shutdowns on the dynamic duo of Gary Payton and Sean Kemp to get this shocking upset in NBA playoff history. And of course, the capper was the image of Dikembe Mutombo holding the ball in the air with a big smile on his face. And maybe not just one of the all-time great upsets from the Denver point of view, maybe one of the bigger choke jobs in the history of NBA from the Seattle point of view, because you was a number 1 seed. You had the home court all throughout the playoffs. Nobody could touch you on your home court. You were just pounding teams, especially with the dynamic duo of Payton and Kemp. But to lay an egg 3 straight times after you just demolished Denver the first 2 is, from the Seattle point of view, that was a choke job. But Denver made history. Actually, I think 3 or 4 of the times it's happened since. Of course, the 99 with New York upsetting Miami and the bouncer by Allen Houston. 2007, who could forget the We Believe team in Golden State when they shocked Dallas, and especially Game 6 where they just ran them out of Oakland. 2011 when Memphis beat San Antonio. I think there was another one in there. I can't think of it at the moment. Actually, a couple times where Miami as an 8 seed stunned Milwaukee as a number 1. The one time was 2 years ago. But maybe the kingpin of the 8 seed over number 1 took place 31 years ago today in Seattle, Washington, where the Denver Nuggets, down 2-0, was losing the first 2 games by a combined 35 points, stunned the 63-win Seattle Supersonics. The final game in Seattle with Dikembe Mutombo getting the rebound and having a big smile on his face on the ground. It was an historic night. May God rest the soul of the great Dikembe Mutombo, one of the premier rim protectors in NBA history. His career accolades speak for itself. And of course, another one that took place exactly 30 years ago today. And of course, it takes place in the Big Apple. It was the Indiana Pacers out of nowhere after being down 6, almost like the same way you saw the Indiana Pacers team last night come from out of nowhere to beat Cleveland. It was 30 years ago today. They did the same thing in New York against the Knicks. The story here, of course, Reggie Miller, 8 points in 8 seconds. Gets a pass in the inbounds, shoots a 3, gets a steal, hits another 3, gets another steal, is fouled, hits 2 free throws to steal game 1 of the best-of-7 series in the 1995 NBA playoffs. Which goes to show you have to take care of business on your home court. And the game is an entire 48-minute game. A slip-up like that, and you're going to find ways to lose. That's what happened to the Patrick Ewing-led Knicks in 1995 against the Reggie Miller-led Indiana Pacers. Reggie Miller, one of the all-time clutch shooters and the clutch moments in NBA history. Maybe before we had guys like Ray Allen and Steph Curry, was in the distinction of the greatest shooter to ever play basketball at any level, collegiate or pro, because he was the same way when he was at UCLA, albeit with that weird release. Actually, he told a story about it on the All the Smoke podcast with Steven Jackson and Matt Barnes. But Reggie Miller, at the greatest stage of them all, actually, second straight year, he had a grand moment in Madison Square Garden. Remember the year before, it was game 5 against the Knicks where they were down, and Reggie Miller scored 25 points, taunted Spike Lee and gave him the choke sign. This year, in 1995, 30 years ago today, it was him scoring 8 points in 8 seconds to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat and propelled Indiana to the shocking win in game 1. Of course, it was a back-and-forth duel. If you guys remember the mid-90s, it was a pretty solid rivalry between the Pacers and the Knicks. Hard-fought battles between 2 real physical teams. And it was this night in 1995. They got the win in game 1. They actually would win the series 4-3 with a clincher in game 7 in Madison Square Garden at the time to get over the hump, because the question was, could Indiana find a way to get over the hump against the Knicks. Remember, they lost in 93, 3-1, and in 94, 4-3 in an epic 7-game classic. Because those mid-90s battles between the Pacers and the Knicks, they were physical, they were tough, and they were classics. Highlight reel moments across the board. Maybe number one was what took place 30 years ago today at the Garden. Reggie Miller, 8 points in 8 seconds. One of the all-time clutch shooters, one of the all-time premier shooters at any level of basketball, collegiate or pro. A terrific moment for him. Boy, I wish I could talk about the NBA more like that. The product's sort of so watered down these days. I mean, sometimes I just want to find ways to not talk about it. I'd rather talk about some of the landmark moments that took place. I mean, some of the games these days, not bad, but not what I remember it as. But I'll still talk about it. Now to the world of boxing. And the ongoing slander continues. This coming from Tank Davis fans. Most notably, it's Kingpin Ray Jackson, who find a way to still diminish Naoya Inoue after being decked by Ramon Cardenas over the weekend. And people are trying to make it seem like Naoya Inoue is chinny and that his career is basically tainted. Let's start with this. Naoya Inoue is a 3-time undisputed champion. Tank Davis is a 3-time fake world champion. Let's start with that. Let's start with something else. We know how much that moron Ray Jackson, kisses up to Tank Davis. We all know this. But as I said before, if a guy like him is crazy enough to think Tank Davis belongs in the same conversation as Naoya Inoue, he needs to simply shut up, get off all of these apps, go into a local hospital out there in Texas, get off the forklift because he's so obsessed with forklifts, check into a hospital, get checked for CTE. He needs to explain to them why is because he's crazy enough to think Tank Davis is in the same conversation as Naoya Inoue in the pound-for-pound category. And once he gets those results, someone get those results and send them to me so I can gladly help him. Here's the thing. Naoya Inoue can fight anywhere he wants, anyone he wants. He's the top 2 pound-for-pound fighter with Alexander Usyk. Let's get that out of the way. He has the right to fight anywhere he wants. If he wants to fight in Japan, have at it. If he wants to come to the States, have at it. He wants to go to the warehouse where Ray Jackson drives a forklift, have at it. If he wants to come to my backyard and fight, have at it. He can fight anywhere he wants because he's one of the 2 premier fighters in the world who controls anything he wants. And we have American morons who are stupid enough to think because he hardly fights in the United States, he's not, recognizable or he's not respected. Do you guys not forget boxing is a global sport? Let me remind you idiots of some things here real quick before I proceed. The Thrilla in Manila, October 1st, 1975. The third fight between Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier. Muhammad Ali, Louisville, Kentucky. Joe Frazier, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Where did that fight take place? Manila in the Philippines. Let's start with that. Who can forget the Rumble in the Jungle, October 30th, 1974. Muhammad Ali and George Foreman. Muhammad Ali from Louisville, Kentucky. George Foreman from Houston, Texas. Where did that fight take place? Kinshasa, Zaire. You can forget, of course, the showdown. George Foreman and Joe Frazier. January 22, 1973. The night of Down Goes Frazier. Joe Frazier from Philadelphia. George Foreman from Houston. Where did that fight take place? Kingston, Jamaica. I'll throw you a couple of others. Mike Tyson, Buster Douglas. Buster Douglas from Columbus, Ohio. Mike Tyson from, Catskill, New York. Where did that fight take place? That historic upset? Tokyo, Japan. Lennox Lewis from Britain. Hasim Rahman from the United States. Where did their first fight take place at? Johannesburg, South Africa. Can you American morons just please shut up? Because it doesn't matter who's fighting where the fight's taking place. We're having fights taking place anywhere they want. Just be happy we're getting fights. Okay? Because if you have a problem with a fighter of the stature of Naoya Inoue, because he's one of the top 2 fighters in the sport, you can demand anything he wants, deal with it. If you don't want to deal with it, get out. Because Naoya Inoue, you can nitpick whatever you want. You can call him anything you want. The guy can fight anywhere he wants, anyone he wants, at any given time. Because he's proven himself time after time after time after time. I mean, Cardenas hit him with a perfect shot that floored him. I mean, that happens in the sport, okay? I mean, I've seen Julio Cesar Chavez, who's supposedly the greatest chin fighter of all time, get floored I've seen Roberto Duran, an all-time great chin fighter, get floored, among many others. Let's not act like Naoya Inoue is suddenly chinny because he got floored by Ramon Cardenas. I mean, Cardenas can fight a little bit. I mean, he basically, along with Naoya Inoue, won that night in Vegas on Sunday because I was one of those that has to eat a little crow right now because I didn't think he belonged in the ring with him. But he proved me wrong. Shout out to Cardenas. Great effort. But everybody in the boxing fraternity needs to stop getting nitpicky on where fights take place and who is the opponent. Especially with Naoya Inoue, because he's earned the right to do anything and everything he wants. You guys remember him on Twitter not too long ago. He basically said, anyone who wants to come fight me in Japan, he's going to have to come to my terms and come to my territory. And he's earned that right, and that's something everybody in the fight game, especially Tank Davis fans, most notably Ray Jackson, need to get. Because if you don't get it, get out. Because we have no place for you for stupidity like that. It's unreal. I mean, I said this when I talked about the Foreman Fraser show earlier this year. For all the American morons, doesn't matter who's fighting who or where the fight's taking place. At least the fight's taking place, and that's where everybody needs to just seal it and just be happy with it. I mean, if someone could tell me I could sell 50,000 seats in my own hometown and make $10 million or whatever the frick Naoya Inoue makes when he fights at the Tokyo Dome in Tokyo, Japan, do it. I mean, it doesn't matter. You're the undisputed champ. They got to beat you to get it. That's the thing. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's in Japan. It doesn't matter if it's in the States. It doesn't matter if it's in Africa. It doesn't matter if it's in Ray Jackson's warehouse where he drives a forklift. It doesn't matter if it's in my backyard. It doesn't matter if it's on the other side of the nasty Ohio River over here. It doesn't matter. They can fight wherever the heck they want. It's still going to do numbers because Naoya Inoue knows how to draw. Something Tank Davis doesn't know how to do. I'll be talking about this more and more with each passing day. Now to a historical night that took place over 67 years ago today. This took place in Chicago Stadium. This was a rematch between Ezzard Charles and Elmer Ray, a rematch of a controversial decision that took place a few months before where many people thought Charles should have been given the nod, but it was Ray who got the decision. But it didn't matter because in the rematch, another case of why Ezzard Charles showed why he's a genuine all-time great at the light heavyweight division, where it was the left hook in the 9th round that just pulverized and just flattened Ray to get the win and ascend himself to a higher stature in the light heavyweight division. Of course, he never was able to get the title shot because of many crazy, wild reasons, however you want to describe it. But Elmer Ray was actually a decent fighter, known for a punch. I mean, his nickname was Violent. It was out of Federal Point, Florida. Known for his punch, was rated by Ring Magazine at one point as one of the 50 hardest punchers to ever step foot in the ring. I mean, that should tell you something about his power. Got a 3-fight series with Jersey Joe Walcott where he won one of those 3. And I said he split the series with Ezzard Charles. Of course, gave Charles all he can handle really in both fights. Some people thought Charles should have been given the decision. Basically, the press at that time in the late 1940s when the first fight took place was split down the middle so you can bank it out however you want it. But Ezzard Charles left no doubt in the rematch the prowess and the greatness of Ezzard Charles. The Cincinnati Cobra showed itself over 2025, 1948, over 77 years ago today at Chicago Stadium with a one-punch left hook that flattened Ray and kept him down and out for the count. It was a terrific win and a terrific performance for the standout Ezzard Charles, who marched up the stature as the greatest light heavyweight of all time. I said the other day when I was at Ezzard Charles Park, we talk about Cincinnati icons. The guy's always going to be number one. I mean, the mural, the statue where I was at, the street, the park, the apartments, his place is secure forever. And he had another case of it. So it was 77 years ago today where he just pasted Elmer Ray, a vicious puncher and a very strong, sturdy fighter, put him on the canvas down and out for the count to raise the stature to, at that time, the number 2 rate light heavyweight in the championship rankings. Of course, he didn't get the title shot for the obvious reasons. I can go more and more. But as I said, we talk about the all-time great light heavyweights. Ezzard Charles is more likely going to be number 1. Some people would put Billy Conn up there. Conn might have had the greater prime, but Charles wasn't far behind. But Charles' prime lasted longer Reconsider the 3 wins he had over Archie Moore and 2 over Joey Maxim and Charlie Burley. And of course, venturing up to the heavyweight division to win the title in a 4-fight series with Jersey Joe Walcott and beat Joe Louis in 1950. Had the 2 great fights with Rocky Marciano. The second fight where he actually had a chance to win had Marciano busted up to where they were about to stop the fight. But his crowning achievement on that night was being the only fighter during Rocky Marciano's title reign to last a distance with Rocky Marciano. That's the greatness of Ezzard Charles. Elmer Ray, a standout fighter, the 3 series, fought a fighter way back when named John Henry Lewis and gave him all he can handle in that fight. I mean, one of the premier punchers of his time in that particular era, but couldn't get over the hump. He beat Charles the first time, but Charles got the return. And I conclude with Ezzard Charles in the sense that he was one of the all-time Cincinnati icons here. Number 1, in my opinion, bar none. The mural and everything else. His counterpart in the boxing fraternity, Aaron Pryor, later on, who came on. Pryor was more of a what could have been because of his battles with substance abuse and of the controversial win over Alexis Arguello the first time with the give me the bottle of the one-eye mix. Doesn't deter the fact the guy's a Cincinnati icon also in the sport of boxing because of his ability to sell out Riverfront Coliseum on network television when NBC, CBS, and ABC were the premier networks of the sport. You would tune in to watch Aaron Pryor just fill the stadium and just entertain fans. Of course, the other Cincinnati sports icons I mentioned, Oscar Robertson, the all-around player out of the University of Cincinnati, of course, played with the Cincinnati Royals, now the NBA Sacramento Kings. Won an NBA title in Milwaukee with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And the baseball, of course, Johnny Bench, arguably the greatest catcher in baseball history. Probably the greatest to ever wear the Cincinnati Reds uniform, in my opinion. Some give it to others, but for my money, because he did it from start to finish, Bench is number 1. His teammate, Joe Morgan, who Johnny Bench said countless times, there's no back-to-back World Series with a Big Red Machine without Joe Morgan. Morgan's definitely in the conversation because I remember the day he passed. Joe Morgan's legacy lived on. August 8th will always be Joe Morgan Day in Cincinnati. I can tell you the impact Joe Morgan had during his time here in Cincinnati when he was a part of the Big Red Machine with Johnny Bench. Eventually, Barry Larkin, the standout shortstop for Cincinnati, the baseball Cincinnati Reds, a key piece of the 1990 World Series, won the MVP in 1995, led the Reds to one of the better records in baseball, helped them stun in the sweep of the Dodgers in the 1995 divisional playoffs. Has a road named after him along the banks in his statue, now a part of the Cincinnati Reds and Cincinnati community. Barry Larkin's a Cincinnati icon. You add, of course, the standouts from the NFL, Ken Anderson, the quarterback, and Anthony Munoz, the outstanding left tackle for the Cincinnati Bengals. Their place in Cincinnati icon history is secure. Still doing stuff in the Cincinnati community, among the many things they do. Terrific individuals. 2 other Cincinnati icons in the NFL field when you talk about the Cincinnati Bengals. And the capper is, when he was here, the standout Luciano Acosta from FC Cincinnati, who electrified Cincinnati and just touched up Cincinnati like it was none other. Because the ability from the soccer fans to the soccer players and vice versa was electric. And when Lucio Acosta was here in Cincinnati for FC Cincinnati, he lit up Cincinnati like none other. I haven't seen Cincinnati lit up for an athlete like that since they won the World Series in 1990 with the Reds. And that's Luciano Acosta. But despite all the names I mentioned, no one's going to top Ezzard Charles, his history, and they're still celebrating and honoring him today as I speak to tell you about the legacy of the great Ezzard Charles. And I conclude with another historical night because everyone's talking about fight cards here. Let me remind you of one that took place 31 years ago today at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. This was a unique one. It was dubbed Revenge, the Rematches, promoted by Don King and Showtime. 4 championship rematches. Azuma Nelson versus Jesse James Leija. Gerald McClellan versus Julian Jackson. Terry Norris versus Simon Brown. Julio Cesar Chavez versus Frankie Randall. You know the story with that card? The first fight, actually, one of them was a weird situation with they announced Leija the winner, and then it was a draw. Gerald McClellan and Julian Jackson, the rematch of a fight where McClellan just bum rushed Jackson, Really, I thought the rematch made no sense. The rematch of a shock. The other two rematches, Norris Brown and Randall Chavez, were rematches of significant upsets when you talk about the betting odds, because one was 14-1, the other one was 15-1. But another case of Don King putting together a quality pay-per-view card worth $30. You can just pull out the ATM and just give it to the cable provider and say, turn on the pay-per-view. Because that's what Don King did in the 90s. You can see a lot of things about Don King, good, bad, pretty, ugly, and everything in between. True, false, whatever. But when it came down to putting the cards for the fans to watch, he did it. And he did it here 31 years ago today at the MGM Grand with this card. It was the rematch between Azuma Nelson and Jesse James Leija. First fight was weird in San Antonio because it was officially announced Leija was a winner, but after everyone cleared the ring, they turned it into a draw due to a miscalculation. But in the rematch here, Leija ended no doubt, floored Nelson early and just controlled the fight from start to finish to get the unanimous decision, so he got his revenge. And it was the rematch between Gerald McClellan and Julian Jackson. At one time, Julian Jackson was the most feared puncher in boxing history. But when they fought the first time, Joe McClellan made a sack the title out of him and basically backed it up when basically bum rushed Jackson in less than a minute. Basically, when I saw McClellan Jackson 2, I thought I was reliving Tyson Spinks. I mean, Joe McClellan came out and just bum rushed Julian Jackson and just ended it in a snap. I mean, Julian Jackson, a ferocious puncher and a terrific boxer, 3-division world champion. Joe McClellan made him like he didn't even belong in the same ring as him. I mean, that should tell you how great Joe McClellan was. Of course, we know the unfortunate circumstances with McClellan a little more than a year later, the fight with Nigel Benn, and that unfortunate, sad circumstance. I won't talk about it on this particular platform, but fight followers know what that's all about. Of course, the rematch between Terry Norris and Simon Brown. The first fight, of course, Brown found a way to get to Norris's chin and end matters in the 4th round. The rematch, Terry Norris shows his terrific boxing ability and not let Simon Brown get to that chin of his, because everybody knows Terry Norris didn't have the greatest chin. That's a chinny fighter. And get the unanimous decision win. Brown did have a couple moments here where he landed some shots and looked like he was going to maybe take over, but Norris fought a smart tactical fight, kept Brown at the end of this jab, used his boxing ability and ring generalship to regain the super welterweight championship. And of course, what's a Don King fight card without Don King controversy? You know what we're talking about. The second fight between Frankie Randall and Julio Cesar Chavez. The headbutt at the end of the 8th round and some wild circumstance, some crazy rule that was made up. And because of that crazy rule, Chavez regains the championship on a split decision. Of course, that's because of Don King politics. What's a Don King card without any form of Don King politics? That's what happened with Randall Chavez too. Everybody knows the story with that one. Sort of sad because it almost like they want to diminish the greatness of Julio, who was already an all-time great before this fight. I mean, the guy's probably a top 30 all-time great fighter before this fight. And then people act like he wasn't an all-time great fighter anymore after this. That's where I scratch my head. I mean, the fight itself, Randall came out, looked like he was going to end it early because he had Chavez hurt in the 2nd round with a perfectly placed right hand. Chavez gets a little technical, softens some Randall up in the middle rounds. Randall finds a second win. Looks like he was going to take control and win the fight. The headbutt at the end of the 8th round, the cut, and all kinds of wild baloney takes place. Of course, it's Don King boxing. What do you expect? And because of the baloney, a point was taken off of Randall under Don King's circumstances. And because of Don King's circumstances, Chavez winds up regaining the championship. This card featured everything. And as I said, it had the, personalities, skills, wills, high-level fighters. Really, 4 fights would be a main event on either of the HBO or Showtime premium networks. It has stood alone. But that shows to tell you the depth that Don King had with his talent to put together this card on a night where basically 4 guys, either 4 guys versus 4 guys, 4 winners versus 4 losers of the first fight going in. It was basically repeat or revenge every time. That was a storyline throughout the entire night. And basically, Leija got his revenge. McClellan showed the world Julian Jackson didn't belong in the same ring as him. Norris got his revenge. Chavez got his revenge, albeit with Don King business. But it was a stellar card, and that's what a great card was. 4 high-caliber world championship fights that, I believe, if I'm correct, trying to think, Nelson, Norris, Brown, Chavez, Jackson. I think 6 of them are in the International Boxing Hall of Fame. I mean, you could also make a case for a guy like, Gerald McClellan had what happened to him. Maybe he should be in also. But yes, 6 of the 8 guys on that card wound up being in the International Boxing Hall of Fame. That should tell you something about that card right there. I mean, the only 2 that weren't were Frankie Randall and Jesse James Leha. But still, both very, very good fighters who won multiple titles in multiple divisions. But that's the kind of card Don King put together throughout the early 90s when he bolted HBO for Showtime at the end of 1990. I mean, he had many of them. But 31 years ago today, his Grand Slam of rematches, titled Revenge, the rematches, took place. 6 of the 8 fighters featured on this pay-per-view card wound up being the International Boxing Hall of Fame, among some of the all-time greats. And it was a stellar card where any one of these fights, those 4 fights that took place, could have been a main event on their own. Say what you want about Don King, but he knew how to put the cards together in the early 90s. That's what a stacked fight card was. Not some of the ones we see today where they were all snooze fests. Big-time shows, big-time cards where everyone wanted to tune in and got their money's worth. And that's what Don King did. I said, say what you want about him. Good, bad, pretty ugly. But he knew how to put a card together. Did it 31 years ago today. What's dubbed as Revenge, the rematches. 4 of them. I don't think we're seeing any card, anything close to like that. I mean, some of the people see all these cards today, I sit back and laugh because I saw many cards where from top to bottom, fighters now in the International Boxing Hall of Fame. I've seen fight cards where Evander Holyfield was featured, but you had Julio Cesar Chavez on the undercard, and Holyfield and Chavez are Hall of Famers. You say the same with Mike Tyson when he used to fight. I mean, even with other Don King fighters, he had Felix Trinidad and Terry Norris on undercards. Trinidad and Norris are Hall of Famers. That's what a boxing card was like back in the day. All-time greats fighting at the high level. Didn't matter if they were the main event. Didn't matter if they were in the walk-in bout, the walkout bout, the concession stand bout, or the sit them on the top of the MGM Grand Garden roof bout. They just wanted to go. I mean, it's not about A side or B side or anything. They were chasing greatness. That's what it was. In the case of the 4 guys, the 4 fights that took place 31 years ago today, there was 4 guys looking to repeat versus 4 guys looking for revenge. 3 of them got the revenge. 1 of them got the repeat, but it was a stellar card from top to bottom. Boy, I wish we could find a card like that again, but we're probably a long, long, long way from it because there's so many reasons for it. I'm not going to divulge into details because I stay away from today's aspect more than anything else. I like to revision history because I like to remember what things were. Yes, criticize me for living in the past. I don't care, but that's how I am. Because sometimes I see the people in today's bias. I have to remind people what I lived because I had lived through the same thing a lot of you guys live. It's basically the same thing. It's a whole different dynamic back then. I mean, you guys have the privilege of having technology and the internet, among many others. We didn't have that privilege back in the late 80s, early 90s. We just had the antenna with the bunny ears, the VHS cassette where you hit the record button and having to pick up the phone and call your pay-per-view provider to order fights or your premium provider, HBO or Showtime, to order fights. Some of you guys are just ungrateful. Maybe you guys need to understand what happened during my time because if we had the internet, among many others, back in those days, boy, I guarantee you, the internet will find a way to short circuit itself because some of the cards and some of the fights that were put on these premium networks would basically set sparks on your laptops or on your devices because there were some killer fight cards way back when and some historic main events back then. If there was on social media today or the internet, basically the internet and social media would basically shut down for about a month because everybody, including the casual fan and the casual entertainer, the casual musician, or even the casual blue-collar worker who works as a janitor in the local schools, they'll be talking about it. That's what it was back in my day. Everybody today needs to learn how to be grateful a little bit. I love having to teach some history a little bit because some people today just don't get it. I'm not going to say I do, but I know more than you would know. I would know more than you would think. And that'll wrap up this edition of Sirhan on X. I hope everyone had themselves a wonderful rest of the 7th of May 2025. As always, make self-care your number one priority in life. Always take care of yourself first. If you don't take care of yourself first, nothing else in life matters. If you take care of yourself first, good things will come your way. That's why self-care should be your number one priority ever in all walks of life. My favorite thing to tell everyone, because yours truly had to live through it. If you missed any of this show today on the X, Rumble, or Facebook platforms, you can catch the audio version on the Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Spotify platforms as the show is starting to expand to greater ventures and greater platforms, not just in Cincinnati, but across the United States and across the world, especially to my followers over there in England, Germany, Switzerland, Turkey, among many others. Have a good rest of the night. Take care of yourselves. God bless. Enjoy the evening, and I'll see you soon.